Hey there, everyone. This is Dr. Fancy Pants, an American historian who has done in depth studies on World War II. The Holocaust was one of the darkest moments in all of World War II. Germany began rounding up Jews and taking them to concentration camps to be tortured and then murdered. It was an attempt by Nazi Germany to commit genocide on the Jewish people of Europe. Today, we'll be discussing details from the Holocaust with Elie Wiesel, a man who had first-hand experience at Auschwitz, a Nazi concentration camp. Welcome, Mr. Wiesel.
Hello, Dr. Fancy Pants. Thank you for having me on here today.
Of course. Mr. Wiesel, if you could take us back to the beginning, what was life like before the war?
Well, we lived in Siget, a small town in Transylvania. I studied the Talmud by day and dreamed of God by night. My childhood was filled with faith, tradition, innocence, until the Germans came. Then the sky began to fall, slowly and then all at once.
I wanted to ask you to first provide our fellow listeners with a short overview of what happened to you during the Holocaust.
When I was only 15, my family and I were deported from our home in Siget, Romania, to the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp. On the night of our arrival, my mother and young sister were murdered in the gas chambers. Me and my father were then transferred to the Buchenwald concentration camp, where my father eventually passed away.
Man, when was your family taken? Did you understand what was happening?
Not fully. No one did. We were told we'd be resettled, that we could bring bags, but the cattle cars didn't take us to a new home. They took us to a world where the sun forgot to rise.
You've written about your first moments at Auschwitz. What do you remember most?
The smoke, the smells. When I was there, a guard shouted, "Men to the left, women to the right." I held my father's hand. My mother and sister went another way. I didn't know it was goodbye. I didn't even get to say her name.
Man, what sustained you in the camps?
At first, to be honest, anger, and then silence. But mostly, my father. He became my reason to live. In a place where time had no meaning, where God even seemed absent, his hand in mine was the only truth I had to hold on to.
You said that in Auschwitz, every day was a war for your soul. What do you mean by that?
The camps did more than kill the body. They tried to kill hope. They turned fathers against sons, made strangers out of neighbors. To survive, you had to fight to remain human, to not let death become normal.
After liberation, how did you begin to speak about what happened?
I didn't. To be honest, not at first. For 10 years I was silent. How could words capture the screams of a child watching his mother burn? Eventually, I wrote Night, not as a book, but as a duty.
Man, how did your faith survive?
It changed. I still pray, but I argue with God more now. I no longer ask, where was God? I ask, where was man?
So you were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1986. What did that moment mean to you?
It was not a prize for peace, but for remembrance. I accepted it in the name of children who never had a voice. I carried them with me in every speech, every story, to honor their lives.
Wow, that's powerful. What would you want young people my age, to remember most from your experience?
That indifference is dangerous. The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. If you see injustice, speak. If you hear only silence, break it. You don't have to save the world, but never walk away from it.
Finally, if you could say one thing to the world today, what would it be?
Remember, not just what happened, but why it happened. Memory is not just for the past, it's for the future. For the sake of the living, we must never forget the dead and never allow this atrocity to happen again.
Thank you so much for coming on here and talking with me.
Of course. Thank you for having me and helping me spread the message. For the innocent lives that were lost and the lives of the survivors who were forever changed. I was forever changed. I hope that this interview was able to provide some context to what my people went through and to never forget what happened during the war behind the scenes.
Thank you guys for listening to this podcast. We'll see you next time.